Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another great edition of Sports A2F. I'm your host, Logan Graffy, and on today's show, college football teams that are flying under the radar going into the 2024 season. And starting off, I want to get into the Miami Hurricanes. I think they are definitely flying underneath the radar. You look at what they did in the transfer portal in the spring. I mean, you got Barrow they got coming in, the defensive tackle from Michigan State. You got Cam Ward, who has kind of bounced around, but Cam Ward going from Incarnate Word to Washington State when he followed his head coach, who is now not there anymore. And now he is transferred to the Miami Hurricanes. And I wanted to make sure I got some players correct because, like I said, I think Miami is falling underneath the radar. And a friend of the podcast, Dave Rainey of Who Effin' Knows, go watch their show on YouTube. Great show. And I asked him, I said, Dave, what players outside of Cam Ward should I highlight? I mean, you have so many great players that I should probably talk about. Which one should I highlight the most? And I'm going to read to you a quote from Dave. He said, on the defensive side, you got to talk about defensive end Ruben Bain. He's a true sophomore. He led the team last year as a freshman with 7.5 sacks. And you talk about linebacker Francisco Moigo, a senior that tied the team for the team lead in sacks. And he commands the defense. And he said, on offense, of course, you have to talk about the best transfer portal running back, Damian Martinez from Oregon State. And you pair him with Xavier Rushpo, returning for his 5th season as one of the best slot wide receivers in the ACC, if not the country. And it gives Cam Ward an extremely reliable target. And I've been doing some digging, and I have to agree with him. Miami seems to have a lot of offensive firepower coming in, and now it seems like they're going to have the quarterback that can help them maybe put it all together. I don't know how far they go, but I like all the moves that they've made. And there was once a time where Miami just dominated college football, and I'd like to see that again. I'd like to see Miami get back to the glory days, in a manner of speaking. And starting off correctly with getting Cam Ward at quarterback, because lately at Miami down there, it has just been quarterback hell. And as an LSU fan, before Joe Burrow, I knew what that was. So next on the list for me, you have to talk about is the Duke Blue Devils. I mean, it's a new era. Mike Echo, former head coach, is now the head coach at Texas A&M. And now it's the Manny Diaz era. Speaking of the U, he is now the head coach at the Duke University. Duke is primarily a basketball school. We all know this. And the one thing, the biggest highlight of the Duke Blue Devils offseason so far, including the spring game, is, of course, Malik Murphy. They got Malik Murphy. He's a transfer from Texas. He left, because at Texas, the quarterback room was Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy, and Arch Manning. But Malik Murphy wasn't going to get reps over Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning any longer. So the one thing, I'm going to read a quote from the Duke Chronicle. It said, while the Blue Devils' spring game was by no means perfect, flashes of Manny Diaz's plan for the future has shown through. Established talents like junior cornerback Chandler Rivers, who I think is very underrated as well, senior wideout Jordan Moore clearly stood out among their peers. And newcomers such as redshirt sophomore quarterback Malik Murphy as a freshman and corner Vontae Floyd provided an insight into possible future star power. And I think Malik Murphy, though watching the spring game highlights, he didn't do great, but you've seen flashes, and it's spring. You don't want to put everything into a spring football game. It's not very the bullets aren't really flying live, but he somewhat struggled. But I really like Malik Murphy's potential, especially at Duke, where it's going to be an offense built around him. He has scramblability. He has really good scramblability, mobility, and you have to just kind of think Duke's flying underneath the. I'm not in any way saying that Duke is going to win a national title, but they're going to win some football games this year or even next year because I think Malik Murphy's going to ascend in a way. Ascend. And we know Duke as a basketball school, so it would be interesting to see how they do with their football team because the only Duke player football-wise in the NFL that has any notoriety is Daniel Jones, who is the quarterback for the New York Giants. And it would be nice to see Duke get some more high star players in the NFL. Now, the last school I want to talk about is a local school, and you know, no one really talks about them much. You hear all the local schools that you usually hear the media talk about, you know, LSU, Southeastern, which is my alma mater, which I'm happy about. ULL Raging Cajuns, UL Monroe Tulane, even Southern, but you never hear them talk about the Grambling State Tigers. The one thing you have to talk about with Grambling State, and most of these schools, you have to highlight their quarterbacks, of course, and I'm going to do that for Grambling. Miles Crawley came in as a transfer from Alabama State, thrown for over 2,000 yards for Grambling State last year, and I think he's going to play very well again this year. I think Grambling's going to be in their conference. I think Grambling has a chance to win it. I really do. Truly. They might make it to the Celebration Bowl if they put it all together under new head coach Mickey Joseph. Mickey Joseph, once upon a time, was on LSU's coaching staff, and he was the wide receivers coach for the LSU Tigers. But then he went off to Nebraska under Scott Frost. I almost said Matt Rule, excuse me. Under Scott Frost, and then he was named interim head coach of Nebraska. Then some legality issues happened with Mickey Joseph, and he was out of football for 2 years, and now he's the new head coach of the Grambling State Tigers after they fired Hugh Jackson after a couple of seasons. I don't think Hugh Jackson's a great head coach. I think he's more of a better offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. As for Mickey Joseph, I am rooting heavily for Mickey Joseph because he's a local product. I mean, he's from Aurora, Louisiana. I mean, he's a Nebraska alum. So, I mean, he got the coach at his alumni at Nebraska. I think Grambling is going to fly underneath the radar in their conference. I think they can win the SWAC. I really think they can win the SWAC because if you look at the SWAC right now, you look at the teams. I mean, you have Texas. You have Jackson State for one. You have Florida A&M. Those are the two schools in the SWAC that you have to watch out for, of course, is Florida A&M and Jackson State, of course. But I really think Grambling can compete with them. I truly believe that because Grambling is in the Western Division of the SWAC. Jackson State and Florida A&M are in the East, but I think Grambling can win the West. And I love the Bayou Classic. I watch it every year, and I think Grambling's going to win it this year. So the Celebration Bowl, I mean, that's the HBCU or Black National College Football Championship, and I think Grambling is going to win it this year. they have a chance of making it there if the things I hear when it comes to Grambling are fairly great when it comes to what Mickey Joseph is putting together in recruiting. The recruiting class he's putting together is he's doing a fairly well job. And I really think it's going to depend on Miles Crawley on offense. The defense, they've had a few members. Lewis Matthews went off to the HBCU Legacy Bowl. Sundiata Anderson, he's now in the NFL with the Seahawks. But I think they have the potential to win the SWAC, especially the East Division, and meet up with either Jackson State or Florida A&M in the Celebration Bowl. So, honestly, scratch that. I think they're going to meet in the SWAC championship with either Florida A&M or Jackson State. The Celebration Bowl is the SWAC and the MEAC. So they might meet. They might meet a really good team in the Celebration Bowl, but I think they have a chance of making it. It's been a long time since Grambling has made it for football, and I'd like to see it. And I highlighted Grambling more than I highlighted the other teams, but I just want to say I think those other teams I highlighted, Miami and Duke, are flying under the radar, but I really want to talk about Grambling because you don't hear Grambling get talked about enough anymore. I know Eddie Robinson has passed on and those days are long gone, and Doug Williams is no longer there as a quarterback or even a head coach, but I think Grambling has just such the potential to win the SWAC and make it to the Celebration Bowl should they put it together this year. And they have not won a national title since 2016. It's been a few years since they've done so, but I think this could be one of those years. Well, you guys, this was a great episode of Sports Etouffee. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this YouTube show all across the social media spectrum and all across the social media algorithm that you guys have. You can find me on Twitter at thesoulman57. And you can follow Sports Etouffee's Twitter page at Sports Etouffee. You can find me on Facebook. Just search my name, Logan Graffia. With that being said, you guys, this has been Sports Etouffee. I'm your host, Logan Graffia. I shall see you guys next time.